Welcome to the Buchanan Report this 19th day of December 2017. My name is Ivan Buchanan, and I'm your host. My co-host, as always, is Ron Hanks and Rhonda Moon Lane. If you're joining us for the first time, our call-in number is 347-857-1710. Again, that number, 347-857-1710. And for those of you that do call in, try to watch your language the best you can. We try to keep it as clean as we can here. Our guest tonight is whistleblower Kevin Caldwell regarding issues at Miami VA. But before we get to our guest, I want to remind everyone that our website is thebuchananreport.com. Again, that is thebuchananreport.com, where we've got just tons of information out there, etc. On our website, we've got just all kinds of links. You can, if you, suicide links, if you need an attorney, there's an attorney section there. Go there, pick one. They'll talk to you for nothing, etc. I want to announce here either if we're live December 26th, which is the day after Christmas, either that day or the following day. We have been working a case having to do with stolen valor, and this is a organization in the veteran community which got a lot of questions about that organization as well. So all that will be coming up either on the 26th or January 2nd. If we're not doing that story on the 26th, we will be dark on the 26th. So just want to let everybody know. I think that's it for me. What do you got, Rhonda? You there? You done flipping your pizza?
Yeah, I'm here now. Michael's out here.
Oh, okay.
I just want to remind everybody about the Burn Pits documentary. Their next showing is coming up December 18th. That is today. That is yesterday. Never mind. Well, there were free tickets, but you can order the DVD now. That's really what I wanted to share. It's at www.trepstar.com. It is trepstar.com, and it's purchase.asp, and it should take you right to it. I'll put the link on our Buchanan Report Facebook page, but I'm sure they have more showings coming up, so just go to the Burn Pits documentary on Facebook. Also on Netflix, go to netflix.com, go to title request, and enter delay, deny, hope you die in the title suggestion box, and they will get it added to Netflix.
Along with the Wookiee.
Okay. I got an email the other day, and it said, since I last filed a VA disability claim, VA has improved the claim process by launching the Decision Ready Claims Program. You'll get a decision in 30 days or less.
A decision as to what? Whether they're going to give you an appointment?
No, this is for compensation claims. But you have to go to a VSO. So you have to go to your VSO. I don't know about other places, but getting a VSO in Tucson is sometimes very difficult. They don't seem to have any office hours, so good luck with that.
So you're saying they're like the rest of the VA? Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't? Is that
right? Yes. And when they work,
kind of
they'll
like
probably
you
lose your file.
Kind of like her pizza. Michael got home.
Michael?
She thinks it's getting ready. It's gone.
Exactly. No, I know how to do this. He's 17, and he don't like the peppers and the onions, so I put them all on one half of the pizza, so he won't eat that half.
Oh, it's a store-bought, huh?
Yeah. I'm not making pizza. No, it's DiGiorno.
Oh, that figures.
Yeah, well.
DiGiorno queen.
If you've ever had a grandchild walk into your house and the first place they go is the fridge, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
As Michael just walked by and said, yes, it was very important topics for your show tonight, Mom.
We thought so. I haven't eaten yet. I'm hungry, man.
Me either, because I didn't know I had to cook till 30 minutes ago. My dog was my cat was at the vet all day. He has congestive heart failure.
Along with your husband.
Yeah, along with my husband, and he's supposed to cook, and he had to go get the cat. So I made pizza.
On his bike?
Mostly. No, in my car.
Yeah, he threw the cat in the saddlebag and took it for a ride. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. No, he takes my car when he needs to. Usually when I need it, but that's okay.
Well, he's got his own truck, doesn't he?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but he don't like to drive it. All right, that was all I had, because I was busy all day. And
that's
you
it?
know what on, so that's it. That's all I have.
Slack.
Well, I have one item. This last Friday, the Veterans Memorial Cemetery of Western Colorado and the Patriot Guard Riders of the Western Slope did their annual wreath laying ceremony there at the Memorial Cemetery. They placed 2,200 wreaths out, and then Saturday was the wreath laying at Arlington. They placed over 245,000
Wow.
wreaths with the help of 100 or 1,000 volunteers, and that works out to like they're going through 25 funerals a day right now at Arlington. The one thing that I found that was interesting, the Worcester, or that's Boston, it's probably Worcester, wreath company of Harrington, Maine, has donated wreaths for this official laying process for the last 26 years. And it's just something that I don't think is very widely advertised.
No, it's not. I think I've seen one post regarding it.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen nothing on the news.
Yeah.
But nothing
I
new
picked
there.
this up out of the local paper. They had pictures of the Western, Colorado Memorial Cemetery. People laying the wreaths there. And it's a bunch of them.
Yes, it is.
And that was the only item I had for tonight.
Well, good thing we have a talkative whistleblower coming up, huh?
Yeah. Definitely.
All right. On that note, we're going to take a short break here. When we come back, we'll be speaking with whistleblower Kevin Caldwell. Boy, I like you, Ron. Got my blues coming. Whistleblower Kevin Caldwell regarding issues at Miami VA. This is the Buchanan Report radio show. We'll be back here in just one moment.
Thank you for listening to the Buchanan Report radio show. Our guest tonight is whistleblower Kevin Caldwell. Kevin is a veteran, successful business owner, and a facility recall coordinator at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs in Miami since 2009. Kevin has achieved best case practices on a national level in fiscal year 2012 and Motivation Idea in 2015. Vision 8 invited Kevin to the strategic planning meeting for the Miami VA for work in changing the culture of VA over nepotism and favoritism. Hi, Kevin. How are you tonight?
I'm good down here in sunny Florida, Miami. We're 74 and hot.
Oh, wow.
not
It's
fair.
freezing here. It's 55.
It's warm here.
55.
The first thing I'd like to start out with tonight, and I want all the listeners to hear this, is the first thing I want to say is that I am a veteran, and I'm exercising my First Amendment right to speak. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that I'm talking as a veteran tonight. I just happen to be an employee that uses the VA system in Miami, and that's why I've had such an extensive look behind the scenes and using the system, and I know what does and doesn't work. And most of our stakeholders, or I would say none of our stakeholders right now, are veterans, so none of them use the healthcare system that they build.
Right. That is a huge problem at VA. We've covered that many times.
And I have one plug tonight. The Monument for Women's Veterans Info is a monument that's dedicated just to women, and I'd like everybody to look at that if they get a chance.
All right. I will find that and put it on our Facebook page. So you're a whistleblower at Miami VA. What's going on there?
Well, what originally happened when the access problem was going on with the VA, when everybody was aware of it in the news, the VA already knew they had an access problem before that situation happened. There was an initiative called the PACT Initiative, the Patient-Centered Aligned Care Team, and it was a project that we worked on for 3 years. VAs were given money all across the country. I don't know the specifics. I want to say Miami got $17 million, but each VA that worked on the project got money. Unfortunately, in the VA that I worked on, the director was under an investigation at the time. I think everybody remembers the colonoscopy problem that we had that was actually a recall. It happened in 3 parts of the country, Phoenix, Smyrna, and Miami. At the time, I had moved to Miami, Florida, because I had sold a business for $1.5 million, a furniture store, and thought I was going to be semi-retired. Unfortunately, with the economy of the 8 years that we were past, at the beginning of that situation, the economy was upside down. There were Ponzi schemes. People were losing money everywhere, and I lost everything I had worked for. I had worked for the Vanderbilt VA prior in my life and had excellent evals there, enjoyed it, and when I ended up down here needing a job, I went to the VA for some service, realized that they needed some help, and I applied for a job. Shortly after that, I got hired. Shortly after that, I got a call to if I had a colonoscopy that I needed to go get checked for HIV. At the same time, I was trying to give my mother a kidney, but when the HIV thing flared up, that was something I went and got tested for, and unfortunately, I know we're going to talk about HIPAA a little bit tonight, but because of my unique whistleblower situation, my personal life is not on the table and never has been. However, my health care is on the table because it affects a lot of people in the area that I live. It's one of the things that's made me a whistleblower. I am HIV positive. I went to the Miami VA to get treated, and there were several problems. And so as I entered the VA, a lot of people thought that I brought a lot to the table because I owned my own business, and at the time my boss was going to be getting married and didn't want to go out of town to work on this project, so she put me up to be the travel clerk, which there were 5 parts for the PACT initiative. There was a doctor, a physician, an RN, an LPN, a clerk, or a medical support assistant. I was to serve as the travel clerk, but I also ended up serving as the pilot clerk for 3 teams. Even though my VA was supposed to pay for a clerk for each one of the pilot teams to work on, I served as the travel clerk, traveled every 3 months for 3 years, and I also served as the clerk for each one of those teams, which became very demanding. As I got involved with the VA, because there was an investigation going on with the director, we were supposed to be sending about 20 to 25 people to those conferences. At our table sat anywhere from 7 to 8 people, no more than that. The VISN was standing in the background because they had obviously put money on the table for this project to go, and they would come to me, and even though I was an entry-level employee, I became very articulate. I started catching on very quickly, and at that point I was even asked to start training clerks across the country on how the role of the MAS clerk would change in order to create a better access. Mr. Shuzansky knew that there was problems with access, and so they put the money up to do this project. and we took best case practices, even though we were the team that was represented the least. And it put me at odds with management at several different times. I remember when we first started it, the stakeholders didn't buy into it. Well, I stood up at one of the conferences, and it was something that was being talked about all across the country. There was money given to these VAs to take care of this project, and they weren't supporting it. And one of the things that I stood up and said is that if you go to a basketball game and you only have 3 people and the other team has 5, the referee comes to the center of the floor and blows the whistle and says you're disqualified. But at the time, there was talk that there would be incentive brought into the VA. That's how they were going to create access. If you saw so many patients and you were turning them over, and this veteran was considered a PAC patient, a line care team patient, that means you were keeping the cost down in health care over a long period of time. You are managing homeless veterans with making sure they had insulin, a place to keep their insulin. So it was really the concept with what was going on in America with the health care. And the team that I worked on finished number 1 in that project. However, as being a veteran and having HIV, I noticed right off the bat that there were not enough doctors in the department that I needed. And when I went to the doctor, the PACT initiative was set up. If you didn't have an appointment and you showed up for a doctor visit, sometimes the doctor would not have to actually see you. The nurse could see you. The doctor could come into the room, assess you whether you have a cough or a cold, and give you either medication or tell you have the flu or whatever, and send you home and attach a note to it. So they were giving work credit load to the RN, but actually doing the physician's job, which I won't talk about Dr. Shulkin so heavy right now, but one of the things that Dr. Shulkin would like to see happen is he would like to see PAs running the VA. And there's a big problem in the VA because they need DOs, and the reason that they need DOs is because they need someone to sign restricted prescriptions, such as opiates.
Right.
So pretty much the DOs that the VA has can run turkey on anybody that they want because they rule the roost, and we need them in order to make the system work. So getting back to the PAC team, obviously if you have HIV or an immunology problem, your immune system is challenged. There's a lot more times that you would go to a doctor. As I worked through the process, I found out that there were a lot more $0 for every patient that's seen on a vested appointment. That's why they go out and they have veterans that they give homeless veterans sandwiches and they bring them into the VA. Because once they get that vesting appointment, those $0 go to that VA. Now, the Miami VA was having a little bit of problem because we have a lot of snowbirds here. We were having veterans that like to come down here and get glasses and get their hearing aid and get all those things that are hard to run around up north and get. So the $0 were being talked about, and if there was going to be extra money because a patient was in a PAC team, the Miami VA decided, even though they didn't have the employees to make the teams, they would just throw all these patients and act like they had a team even though they didn't. And the doctors and nurses were rebuking it. They were saying, you know what, we'll do this, but we're not going to do this if we don't have people. I was brought into a meeting where all the stakeholders were there. There were several doctors when I worked at the Broward County facility, which is our biggest CBOC, and the doctors asked me to stand up and talk to the chief of staff. I told him we need 14 clerks. If we don't have 14 clerks for the 14 teams that we have here, these doctors are walking. The next day they posted 14 clerks. Now that sort of made me a leader, but in some ways it made management very disgruntled with me. Then when the access problem hit the fan, we had a guy from Miami VA. His name was Thomas Fiore. He went on every national syndicated radio or TV show and talked about how that there were no cameras in the hospital. There was a drug rehab going on where actually drugs were being sold. But Mr. Fiore contacted me prior to going on the news, and he told me that while he worked for the VA, they came to him and asked him to investigate me on a criminal level. He said, what would be the reason and the outcome? They said the reason is we want something on him to fire him.
Right.
And they actually, I thought, were giving me a free ride trip to Key West one Christmas, and they sent me down there with a brand new rental car. They sent me down there with an open credit card and told me that I would be down there for Christmas, which was great, Christmas in Key West, right? And I could stay wherever I wanted. But the whole time I was down there, he was following me, and they were trying to entrap me in something. He came back to them and said, I have nothing on him. So originally when the OIG and the OSC talk about, is Kevin Caldwell a certified whistleblower, there's not really supposed to be a list out there of whistleblowers. However, Mr. Fiore went on the news. I played the good soldier, and I went to public relations. I had all three of the major networks standing outside my apartment, and I told them, here's the number to our public relations person. Please call him. When I called the public relations person, he said, well, it sounds like you hold the keys to the castle. He made an appointment with me with the director, which is Paul Russo, and Mr. Russo sat and listened to me. He got all the information from me and told me that we had a new medical administration MAS chief that was coming on board, and as soon as she got there, he would make sure that I had a front row seat with her. But as soon as she got there, which she was one of his friends from the West Palm Beach VA, they pulled this woman out of retirement. They gave her a $50,000 bonus to be there for 5 years, and then they gave both of her kids a GS-9 job. Her daughter was turned down for a job in West Palm Beach.
That's all retaliation, right, for being a whistleblower. What is the issue that you were the whistleblower on?
Well, originally
why did they retaliate?
Because I knew about all the access. I knew about all the mental health consults. I was working on a position that hadn't been created yet in the VA, and it was called the consult coordinator. All of the things like the heart consults, mental health.
Right.
So Mr. Fiore originally came to me, and that's why I was telling that story. I'll try to speed up. But the reason he came to me is that he knew that I knew all of those stories, and they wanted to get rid of me because they didn't want me to tell those stories. So he originally called in as a whistleblower. I didn't call the OIG at that time because I played the good soldier and I went to the director. But I would say that if you brought it to the director's attention and the chief of medical administration, then that qualifies you as telling your story.
Right. I got to ask you, Kevin. This is Ron. We've talked to a number of whistleblowers in the past in terms of retaliation, and they get given a closet down in the basement with a job to do with no computer access, no telephone. They're not allowed to talk to any other employees. Are you saying that you didn't experience any of that?
I did. That's the next leg of the story. Once I talked to that new MAS chief, she told me they had a position for me. She just didn't know where it was going to be, but they had a position for me. And I waited, and I went back to the CBOC where I worked, and I waited, and I waited, and I didn't hear from her. Talked to the boss, didn't hear from her. I kept applying for different jobs. Finally, somebody from HR that I had been in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People class, the lady that I met during that class looked at me from HR. Her name is Aloma. She said, Kevin, you've been blackballed in MAS because you know about the access problem. Get out of that department. So then I bid on the recall coordinator job, which I got.
Right.
I got without any fight or anything. And that was the job that the Miami VA decided that they could hide me on. They were not compliant with recalls. And let's look back now because it's very interesting. There's no author like God. The problem with the colonoscopy machine was a recall. I'm now the recall coordinator. Since that problem happened, you would think that there was so much attention brought to the Miami VA because, you know, they Baker Acted a lady that found out a year ago that her name was in a logbook. When the OIG went in to do the investigation, they found the logbook, but when they went back, the logbook was gone. And the logbook, you know, everything's supposed to be electronically, but it had everybody that had a colonoscopy at the VA at that time, and the book came up missing. The intricate part of the missing book was there was a lady in there that hadn't been contacted. From what I understand, I don't know the complete story, so don't quote me on this, but she went to the emergency room because she had heard through the grapevine that her husband had a colonoscopy, and I don't know if she was pregnant or had a baby. But she went in, they Baker Acted her because she was going, you know, pretty nuts. And then they took the Baker Act off, and when she left the hospital, something to herself and an officer, I believe. But that's kind of the whole scary scenario about the Miami VA. The problem with the colonoscopy machine was a recall. They just didn't catch it. So they were non-compliant. They hire me into a department that's non-compliant. They have a website that's set up by the FDA that you have to comply to, that they weren't compliant to. They had recalls stacked up in the corner, and I come in and I do an outstanding job, but they were very good at what they did because they put me in a job where they isolated me. But what they didn't realize is because I did the job so effectively that I'm what you call an infiltrator. When you go to war and you start realizing that people are screwing you behind your back, you start making sure you make friends everywhere, right? So because I was the recall coordinator, there are recalls with food, there are recalls with surgical, there are recalls with oxygen, there are recalls with every facet of the hospital. So guess what good old Kevin that infiltrates does? Kevin's a well-liked guy, and every department he goes to, somebody's got a story because they know that Kevin's been talked to by the media. They know the VA's after Kevin. So Kevin becomes this guy that everybody comes to. And it kind of helps plug all the stories together. But a lot of times people will say I'm all over the place. I'm actually pretty articulate. But I had moles in every department of that hospital. One of the moles was the secretary to the director. When I filed my EEO on the retaliation, the investigation report reads that he was retaliated against because they discovered he was having lunches with me on Monday. Every Monday, I would meet with him, and I knew exactly what was going on in the director's office. So I was a GS5, but I was quite smart. And then when I started talking about innovation and the access problem was out there, it seemed like the no-brainer because I had a sick mother and a sick father, and it was very easy to schedule my parents' appointments because everybody was sending text messages. Well, obviously, if I'm helping work on access, I produce an innovation idea from Miami that says we need text messaging. It could cut our access problem in a third. Now, they're still doing all this junk with choice, but all they got to do is get somebody that knows computers and get text messaging. I presented my innovation ideal to the stakeholders only because someone suggested that they'd like to be on that train. However, when I went to the stakeholders meeting, they attacked me because obviously they are just so intense about whistleblowers that even if there was something that would make things better for a veteran, they wouldn't do it.
Right.
So at this time, I'm working with the whole vision. I've got IBM coming to the table with a text messaging program. I've got the people that we already have our voice messages that call you on the phone right now. I forget what their name is. And then I had Xerox. There were 3 people, and the people, Audio Care, that's the company that we're with now. Audio Care said, we already do your appointments. We would love to create the software. They fought me so bad on it. Then I got my innovation idea was put forth. They changed it, but one of the associate directors acted like he was taking me under his wing. He was actually very, we know what's going on in the world today about people being harassed. And he led me to believe that if I would come into his office at certain times, he would help me go over my resume. He would help me make a better interview process. He wanted me in his office after hours. I'm not going to go into that aspect of the story right now because I don't think it's relevant. He did make me relevant because after he took me under his wing, I was then invited to the strategic planning meeting. At the strategic planning meeting, the table of nepotism and favoritism and the culture of the VA was my table. When they started talking about it, people were like, oh, let's paint the wall downstairs and put pictures up. And I stood up and I said, no, that's not what the tainted culture of the VA is about. The tainted culture of the VA is people hiring their friends that don't know what the hell they're doing, hiring their family, and passing people up because they want to retaliate against them. The director got in my face in front of every stakeholder in the hospital. This is retaliation, right? And he blackballs me in front of everyone because he said those are accusations and they haven't been proven. However, that same day, I'm put on a committee to work with the chief of MAS, whose daughter and son-in-law got the job. And one of the jobs I applied for, they told me I'd never be qualified for. That woman has now been promoted twice in my VA. She's a GS-12. She's left the hospital. Her husband was a GS-9. He's left the hospital and got another job, and Mama's getting ready to retire. So she got both of her kids a job as a GS-9, $50,000 sign-on bonus as she stayed 5 years, top-of-the-line salary because they pulled her out of retirement. Do you realize, with the problem that they had in MAS, how many chiefs they could have had in MAS had they have just promoted somebody that was the next one up? They wouldn't have had to give her top-of-the-line salary. They wouldn't have given her a $50,000 bonus, and they wouldn't have given two of her kids GS-9 jobs. So when you give those jobs to someone, it has a domino effect. The whole hospital saw that. Everybody was talking about it, but nobody had the kahunas to file an EEO. So I filed an EEO and said I am being retaliated on. And I'll tell you what the job was. The job was the substance abuse coordinator job, and that's the opiate job problem, right? Every Pyxis in the hospital and every Pyxis at the CVOC sends a report at the end of the day to this person. They stand at a fax machine and take the reports off. They put them in a folder, and at the end of the month they do a graph. Okay, that's one department and one facet. Now let's remember, Kevin is the recall coordinator for all of Miami VA and all CBOCs. What does that entitle? That entitles all of pharmacy, over 700,000 items in pharmacy. What is it entitled with surgical? Several 100,000. So you can see, if I could handle the recall coordinator job that handled all those departments, why would they look at Kevin that just finished this project, number one in the nation with access? Kevin's got an innovation ideal. He seems to be working around the clock. At first they're paying me overtime, then they don't have the money to pay me overtime, so I work anyway. And so why would I not be qualified for that job? But this girl was that beat me. The reason she wasn't a veteran was because they needed to bring her mama in the hospital. Her mama knew how to cook the books. And if everybody looks at the OIG report that came out, the first one in 2015, it took them 2 years to come up with it. Her mama was working at West Palm Beach, and she was given direction to Miami. So they were cooking the books in West Palm Beach, and they were cooking them in Miami. And then when Kevin brought it to their attention, yeah, there was a twofer here. She wanted to take me out because I knew she was cooking the books in Miami and West Palm Beach, and she wanted to take me out because she wanted her daughter to have a job. And when the director knew that I was calling him out, do you know how many husband and wife teams are brought into the VAs? How many boyfriend and girlfriends? The chief of logistics right now in Miami was one at 14 years ago in Tampa. Somehow I think I don't know what they call snitches, but I think he was involved with a takedown where they took employees down in West Palm Beach that were veterans that were being given medicine, and they sold them to undercover. Well, I kind of know how that happens because you know what? Since I've been a whistleblower, I'll be at the gym working out, and I just got the VA to give me testosterone 6 years ago. Nobody would look at me. I mean, I'm a big guy, but nobody would look at me and think that I sell testosterone, and I think they've tried entrapping me to sell testosterone. I think that they've tried investigating me and tying me into something with the DEA because people have been aggressive about getting Ambien from me. It's very, very scary how far their hand reaches with the VA. And they are dirty, nasty people. Mr. Russo was a dietitian that runs the Miami VA. For him to have the audacity, when I ran a business, the last year I was in business, I did $45,000 of billboard marketing in Pensacola, Florida, called Whatever Design. Anybody can look me up. Some of the billboards are still up, actually. But for him to look at me and tell me I would have never been qualified for that job, well, you were a dietitian when you had to have a certificate, and you told people to eat apples instead of fried chicken. So
these graphs that they were supposed to be compiling, did you ever get a chance to see any of them?
The what, sir?
They were taking these reports and compiling them into a graph, you said. Were you ever able to see any of those graphs?
Yes.
Okay.
I also just recently came up with an innovation ideal for the opiate problem. If we're sending opiates to homeless veterans or veterans that are in shelters, they're out there when their drugs come in. They call the VA and say they didn't get them. Well, we all kind of know what's going on there, right? They're probably selling the medication. But
Yeah.
you do what you got to do. But instead of doing that, my innovation ideal is, why don't we bring Uber or Lyft into the VA? Why don't we say, hey, if you're a veteran and you have a controlled substance, Uber or Lyft will pick you up, take you to your local Walgreens and CVS, which I might add, everybody remember when we went to the flu shot with CVS and Walgreens? Easier to get a flu shot at Walgreens and CVS than the VA, right? You don't have to go through that whole parade of people. So why not do it with opiates? We're sending a man opiates 3 times. I mean, somebody's got to have their head loose or some screws loose to think that a veteran needed to have his opiates sent to him 3 times in 1 month, right? I mean, they try it with Viagra, and we back off of it. But when a veteran needs his opiates delivered 3 times in 1 month because he's not there, let's solve the problem. Let's not pay that $12.56 to UPS to send the guy medication 3 times, which costs us $36. Let's just have Uber pick him up and take him to his local CVS or Walgreens, which is buying the medication at the same rate that the VA is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another topic. I'm on pain medicine. I hurt my back when I was in the military. I have been on morphine for 7 years. The VA doesn't want to address that I have pain. So when I first came down here, you know, it's very easy to think that a veteran can get involved with street drugs because, you know, if you have pain and you're miserable, you're going to get it somehow, right? Luckily, because I'm a veteran and I keep 1 foot in the VA and 1 foot out, I have Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So shortly after I went to work for them, I needed pain medication and I could not get it. And that's a problem with the VA. If you happen to get a doctor, like I'm on testosterone therapy, the new chief of ambulatory care and I talked last week, she doesn't believe in hormone replacement. I said, that's fine, but as a patient, I should be able to have a conversation with you. We should be able to go over the odds of what it is if I take it and what it is if I don't take it, and then we come to a conclusion together. But in the VA, what happens is that the doctor that you happen to see doesn't agree with the process or medication, you don't get it. And so that's why we have to open up the doors to let veterans go where they want. And let me talk a little bit about how Dr.
Hold on here. I got to jump in. Here.
Okay.
This is we need to take a short break here. We've been speaking with a whistleblower, Kevin Caldwell, regarding issues at the Miami VA. When we come back, we're going to be coming back into our final segment. So I really, want you to dial in here, if you can, Kevin, on the whistleblower aspect and just exactly what's going on, what's not going on, etc. This is the Buchanan Report radio show. We'll be back here in just one moment. We're back with you. This is the Buchanan Report radio show, speaking with Kevin Caldwell regarding issues at the VA in Miami. Kevin, obviously there's a lot of things going on there at Miami VA, specifically regarding your whistleblower situation. What haven't you covered that you feel that you need to get out there, because we are running out of time here?
Okay, one of the objectives I had tonight is I wanted to talk about Dr. Shulkin's role with whistleblowers, what he's not done.
Yes.
The AFGE, which is the American Federation of Government Employees, 700,000 members strong. They're a reason that they're whistleblowers, and the reason that they're whistleblowers is because the AFG, the EEO, the OSC, the OSC, and the ADR, those were all systems that were set up to help employees not be whistleblowers. Unfortunately, none of those are working. There's a master agreement with the AFGE to represent employees. Why do we not see one whistleblower represented by an AFGE attorney? I only make $39,000 a year. Going to a lawyer and giving them $5,000 and paying them $25 an hour, and then Dr. Shulkin, I sent Mr. McDonald an email, and Dr. Shulkin answered the email and said, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Send us everything you got. He had a lady named Cherie Parker. I emailed her everything. They told me they'd get back with me. I waited 1 month. I waited 2 months. Dr. Shulkin then suggested that I go on the VA Pulse. And this is how backsided Dr. Shulkin is and how backsided the VA is. They created this stopping point called the VA Pulse, which is sort of like a Facebook for the VA employees. If you're a VA employee with a VA email address, you can create an account. I created an account. He had asked a question about culture. I started blogging, had 2,800 people following me on the blog. Talked about things from like, why does the VA stay in the eye care business? If you go to America's Best or another place and get an eye exam and a pair of glasses for $59, we can't compete with that. Why don't we get out? There were a lot of things that we thought Dr. Shulkin was compliant to. Now it seems like Dr. Shulkin might have been like the Wizard of Oz, and he had people working for him. They were infiltrating Facebook. They were infiltrating this VA Pulse, and they were infiltrating people's cell phones. Like, I was Baker acted at the VA hospital, and I believe the reason they Baker acted me is because they wanted access to my phone. And when they took me into custody, used to be Baker acted at the hospital that I worked at, they demanded that I do a drug test. I kept
Hold on. You said they took you into custody. What did they take you in custody for?
When they Baker act you, you're considered a harm to yourself or others. So they take you in and they take everything away from you. But we can go back to this. I invited on the VA Pulse, I invited Dr. Shulkin. Come to my hospital, walk around and see the VA the way that I do. Come unannounced. It would be unprecedented. Call for a town hall meeting, meet with the employees, and then go to the book cookers. Don't go to the book cookers right off the bat. I send him a congratulations, even though I will have to admit, I was not happy that this man that sat lame duck for 2 years was now nominated secretary. But I understood what Trump was doing. He started out with Sarah Palin. He went to Cosgrove, and then he ended up with a guy that was second in charge because he had to do something. So don't get me wrong. Dr. Shulkin has served his purpose, but they need to drain the swamp and put somebody in charge that wants to be there. Hell, the man was interviewing for another job under somebody else's department a month ago. He doesn't want that job. And the only reason that Trump's even left him there is because he hasn't found anybody competent. I'd like him to see him do an apprenticeship thing where he gets the woman from Hewlett-Packard to come in and fix the IT problems. He gets another person that was, 18 people running for president, fix the largest government agency in the country. And then if you can do that, you can run for president in 8 years, right? But nobody wants to run the VA, so there's a challenge there. And the one thing that I want to say tonight, too, is I would like to see the VA dissolve in some way. But let's not forget that the VA, the veterans of this country, not only serve their country once, but they serve them twice. We have all kinds of research, and we train every doctor and nurse that is in the field right now. They have at one point in their career trained at the VA hospitals. So we have to look at why the VA is so important to America and why it's so important to health care. And then when we come up with a health care bill, I think we should go to the top 4 people that are selling health insurance and say, listen, you take so many veterans a year. And if Shulkin wanted to save money, we could get out of the eyeglass business. We could implement text messaging. We could turn around and take people like me that have access to insurance. They could pay my premium of $157 a month on my Blue Cross and Blue Shield and be leaps ahead if they did that with everybody that had a spouse or every veteran that had access to health care, if they would just pay their premium. And these guys on Medicare that they're screwing them because they paid their deductible and they went ahead and had it, Shulkin should be fired that he let that happen. It is a disgrace to the American veteran that those deductibles were not paid by the VA. They should be paid up front. And then they should have built reserve teams, just like you do with the military. If the military is really being tasked and we got too many wars going on, what do we have reserve teams for? So you build reserve teams, 4 teams that would go in and take a hospital over. And these SOBs that are sitting back, 85% of them right now are within retirement age. If Donald Trump was taking over an organization and they had that many people ready to retire, they would offer them bonuses to leave. Those men do not want to change where they're at. They just want to get what they can. And as soon as you call them out on the wrong, the first thing they do is they go apply for their retirement. So we lose America is by the balls when it comes to the VA. They have got us clutched. And if they don't build reserve teams and walk into a hospital and say, you allowed this to happen under your watch, you're fired. You allowed this to happen, you're fired. And get rid of them. And until you make the wrong right in the VA, you cannot fix the problem. And they are not willing to do it. And Dave Shulkin, I am so upset with him. You can hear it in my voice. I send him an email telling him, congratulations, I have a lot to share with you. He sends me an email back. That was on the 27th. Hope to see you soon. I find out in the morning meeting, they're trying to find out how to make this meeting not look all about me. So you know what they come up with? They took me into custody the day the man came. They told me I would not steal the show. I said, well, I flipped my fingers underneath my chin, and I said, you know what? I'm Italian, and you tell him if he doesn't want to meet with me, he doesn't have to. But you don't call a man and take a man with police around him in front of veterans that they serve and make them think that I did something wrong. So I left that day. I did a live feed. I pulled the live feed off. I realized I was upset. But I also have been taken into custody one other time at the VA. I went in. The IT chief said your email is going to be dropped if you don't do your privacy training. I filed what they call a mental workers' comp claim. I say that the Miami VA has created extraordinary and unusual working conditions that I cannot work. So I am out on workers' comp right now. That's why I am still considered an employee at the VA. They gave me a list of doctors to go to. I was trying to use the VA, obviously with their mental health thing. They drug tested me. The doctor that I've seen for 14 years, I go in and I say, hey, I want you to do a drug test. I have something going on. He goes, I've already drug tested you. I said, you violated my HIPAA rights. You can't charge my third-party insurance to drug test me unless I give you written permission. So I got a letter from the consolidated director. Yes, we violated your HIPAA rights. So what? We're in bed with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. It's okay. Then I get Baker acted. This was shortly after that happened. They take me. They get my phone. They get everything because they want to go through my phone, right, while I'm standing in the emergency room. They had put me on a medication, Lexapro. I didn't want to take it, but somebody said, you know what, maybe you need this. So I took it, half a pill a day for 2 months. They didn't send me a pill splitter. I had been without the medication 4 days. I get a call they're going to amputate my mother's leg that was very ill for 4 years. I go in to work. They're going to write me up because I sent the director an email asking who decided to take me into custody when the secretary was there, because I didn't follow the chain of command. I'm like, I don't have time to deal with this. My mother's dying. They told me they wouldn't give me 30 days. They Baker acted me, let me stand in the emergency room for 6 hours with no water, no medication that I didn't have, and no food until I agreed to let them drug test me again. They drug tested me across the street. I was released within 12 hours on my own recognizances. And the hospital that trains with the Miami VA, Jackson Memorial, said, when you get out of here, get yourself an attorney.
Okay.
So
Kevin, we got about three. Kevin, we got about 3 minutes here. You know, your final comments here before we have to move on here.
If somebody out there is listening and has an ear to Donald Trump, I would like to sit and talk to him about what Dr. Shulkin put on the VA Pulse, what he put in emails, and what he allowed happen to me. They now have a guy that's in charge of whistleblowing and accountability. His name is Brandon. I tried to get some statistics from him on about how many people they're helping, how many whistleblowers are out there. But just to set the mindset straight, Time magazine should have had whistleblowers on their cover this year instead of women that were trying to advance their career, because us whistleblowers that are making $39,000 a year and trying to save the lives of veterans are a hell of a lot more important than people that are putting their name on the line to get a better life.
What happened when you tried? What happened when you tried getting with Brandon? You got a couple minutes left here.
He's been very good at returning my phone calls, very good at returning my emails, but they say they're triaging my case. I want to hear the president say, anybody that gets on Brandon's list has got immunity. You and I both know that they're going to try to fire me after tonight. It's going to be very hard for them to do, right, because I haven't worked since May. Why was it all right for them to not work? And if they go after my First Amendment, I want to see every veteran out there and every VA employee that's a veteran standing shoulder to shoulder and saying, we're not putting up with it anymore. You have harassed me. You have investigated me on a criminal level. You made it where I couldn't advance. And they offered me $50,000 hush money with the OSC. We came to an agreement that that's what I would take. After my mother died, I was done with it. I didn't want to fight this battle anymore, right? So they give me $50,000. And then when you're a government employee, if there's one part of your job you can't do anymore, you can go on a disability retirement. So the OSC, this is what I really want to point on, too. The OSC
Well, you got
is
about
offering
60
hush money.
seconds, and that's it. I'm sorry.
They're
Go
offering
ahead.
hush money with a disability retirement, which is ridiculous. But thank you for your time tonight. Maybe we can do another show and hit the other parts.
Well, I'll tell you, you've got a tremendous amount of knowledge there. Sounds like you got enough for half a dozen shows here, to say the least. I want to thank you personally, Kevin. I'm going to put you in the blue room. You can hear the rest of the show while we sign off. But, again, thank you very much for coming on there. All right, I've got him in the blue room. Boy, machine gun information, man. I mean, this guy's got it down.
Yeah, some of it sounds kind of familiar to us, too.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear, good report on Brandon there, Sure wish he or his boss would contact us per my email.
Yes.
Shades of McDonald and Shulkin here, so that's a little jab at you there, Brandon. Come on, I've been patient. I've been patient. I'm not going to be patient very much longer. I got people out there that got questions. They want some answers.
Yes, a whole lot of them.
Yep. Okay. That's it for me.
Definitely.
What about you, Rhonda? You got anything else, or are we throwing it over to Ron?
Nope. It's all you, Ron.
Okay, well, I'd just like to say to Kevin, I thank you for your time and service. Thank you for your efforts. Some of it I recognize because we've experienced ourselves, contacting Mr. Shulkin. We were told that he would be in contact with us. He never has. So
he said he was coming on the show, and just wait till he gets sworn in, and then he got sworn in, and up went a wall.
We're still waiting. Bottom line. So he's not alone in this.
No.
I find it surprising that, considering the other whistleblowers we've talked to and what they have done to them in putting them back in their jobs, it's not quite the same thing. But at the same time, what I'm hearing, they're still trying to jab him or stab him in the back. So all I can say is I thank you for your efforts, Kevin. Don't give up the ship.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I do have a quotable quote for tonight. It comes from Benjamin Disraeli.
Disraeli?
Disraeli Gears, Cream.
There you
album. There is no greater index of character so sure as the voice. So don't stop talking, Kevin. Keep putting it out there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
all
that
right.
is all I have for tonight. You all have a good Christmas. And we'll see if we come on after that.
Yes.
We'll see you either the 26th or January 2nd.
Yep.
We'll let you know on Facebook. Y'all have a
I'll
good
be
night.
sober that and amateur night.
Buchanan Report.